Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming back for another lesson. As promised, today I'll be focusing on the ever annoying tangent line and how to avoid them. If you haven't become a subscriber yet, become a become a cub of my wolf pack. All right, and hit that subscribe button right below my chin. Check me out on social media. I got Instagram, Reddit, and Twitch, all at Christian Wolf Art. I'm doing lots of stuff, guys. Check it out. Free entertainment. And with no further ado, I'll get into today's lesson. So, this shouldn't be more than 6 minutes, hopefully, to teach you the concept here. So, I've got a couple of examples that go from pretty simple to a little more complicated, and then we're going to bring up that drawing I did last lesson of all the people in the restaurant, and I'll show you how the principle applies to that diagram. Okay? So in front of us here, we've got two examples. I've got an X beside one, I've got a check mark beside the other. So when you're looking at the first box here on the left, you see a pyramid shape and a cube shape. All right, cube shape's intended to be in front of the pyramid shape, and it's not very clear, is it? We don't know if it's a cube built into the surface of that pyramid. We don't know if the box is sitting in front of the pyramid, right? It's hard to tell because of how we've drawn them right there. So that's why I put the X beside it. You don't want to ever do that when you're drawing objects that, well, that are meant to be separate from one another. You want to give them space. You want to make it clear to your audience that they are not one, right? You don't want to ever confuse your eye. So the second example on the right shows the box broken apart ever so slightly from where it originally was, and you can see the effect it has. Without using perspective or anything, we can tell that the box is sitting in front of the triangle, right? So that's kind of the idea of a tangent forming in example 1 with the X on it, and breaking a tangent would be the second example here. So I've got another one for us. Let's check it out. So doing more of a landscape type of composition, you'd want to break your items up in the same manner, right? The first example here, you've got, let's say, a sailboat on the water, and there's some mountains around it. We can't tell if those mountains are in front. We can tell that two of them are behind, but the one that it's going into, we can't tell if it's in front, behind, right? It's not as interesting as panel 2 here, where you've got our sailboat. It looks like it's in the middle of the body of the water. We've got two mountains or islands in the background, and we've got another island or some body of land emerging from the water in the foreground. Okay, it breaks up the composition a little bit more, right? Next week we'll focus on composition and the importance of moving the eye around. But this is kind of one of these things you want to start getting your brain thinking about. It's like avoiding tangents is almost like a reflex when you're drawing. Okay, so there's another example. And another example I have is this one here, um, which will show you just how convoluted the information gets when you start to put the information in one area. You would never want to have the contour of this profile of this character's face line up with the doorway. You would never want to have the person in the doorway lining up with that contour too. It's way too much information. When if we go down here and we push the door frame over a little bit, it's totally okay that we have that character's nose. it's totally okay that we have that character's nose overlapping the doorway just a bit. We get the total read on his profile that he's in the foreground. We get the idea of where the wall starts, where the door frame is, and then by placing the character on this other side of the door frame, we get the idea that he's standing in the door frame by taking his arm out and just overlapping it on the wall here that is the frame of the door. We can tell that he's coming into the room and looking at our character, okay? There's some other things going on that I won't mention just now. We'll focus on them later. But this is essentially what you want to do when you're composing panels, compositions, even drawing characters' faces. You want lines to all read nice and clearly, everything overlapping at the correct points, okay? So like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm going to use the example I did the other day. I threw a few more characters in there. And I'm just going to, we'll go blue here, and I'm just going to show you, as we zoom into this piece, the examples. And we'll start right in the back of the room here. You can see the corner of the room where the wall meets the piano. I've got a perfect overlap where the side of the piano intersects with the corner of the room, okay? It wouldn't look as interesting if the corner of the room lined up with the edge of the piano here, right? It wouldn't separate the piano in space as well. Same with the items on top of the piano, the portion that almost forms a mantle, right? We've got all these items in here overlapping each other. This vase right here, it's a shape, overlaps the surface area of the top of the piano. Same with this vase here, it overlaps. It overlaps the portrait in behind it, right? None of these vases and the plant works coming out of them are lining up anywhere parallel with the side of the portrait behind it. You can see this side right here lines up center to my vase on the right. You can see this one has tons of space just to read all on its own, right? The bottom of my portrait, it lines up in the center of all those vases, giving them lots of space to show the overlap, to show the distance and space. You can go around my entire room. Go to this portrait over here, right? And the characters in front of them are overlapped in such a manner that it's a clear read, right? Her body shape would be like this. And you can see she forms a nice overlap on the carpet behind her, on the trim right here, where the trim meets the floor. You can see my area rug there that she's standing on. It forms an overlap. It's going kind of between her feet. The gentleman standing beside her, he's forming an overlap. His arm is going to the piano here. His belly is protruding, so he's standing in front of the piano ever so slightly. You see? And if you go around the room, and you just keep looking at all the examples, you'll see they just overlap ever so slightly. The guy playing the piano, his back isn't lined up with the gentleman to his right. It's not lined up with the edge of the piano here, which is now behind the gentleman on the piano player's right. Everything overlaps ever so slightly, right? The stool that the piano player plays on, it overlaps ever so slightly. And I give every single item in my composition space, right? And you'll find, if you play with it and you stay in this rough kind of loose gestural state, you can start to fit in everything, you know? And then, obviously, I know not only my perspective, but my anatomical proportions of all my characters too, right? So that'll come in time. When you guys learn anatomy, this stuff will be a little more practical for you, okay? But I'm using this example and everything in it to show you that there are constant overlaps as I push everything around, as I scale everything out, as I draw everything in perspective, okay? This table of gentlemen here in the middle here, you can see the character standing up, his contour of his body, right? it forms a nice overlap for what's behind him. You can't see this here, but I'll draw it in here. I'll do it in green so you can see. But I've got a character in the foreground here. All right. So this was going to be his head. This is going to be his shoulder and his arm coming over to the table. So you see his head forms an overlap on the table. His shoulder forms an overlap on the table that it's just greater than the angle of the table residing in space. Okay. So that's going to form an overlap. So is his arm coming over the table like so. There's a chair sitting in behind that character, which is going to form an overlap. All right, so as I'm drawing these things in here, I'm minding that each of them falls into space correctly, how they may, but that these overlaps all read correctly. This is going to be his leg in foreshortened. This is going to be his heel of his foot underneath, on the what you can't see on the other side of that chair. This is going to be his other shoulder. It sort of overlaps this character here in the beside him to his right. I could even go as far as putting his hand on the table there like that, right? I could even put another heel in behind there, right? As long as these overlaps read correctly and are anatomically proportionate, I can keep going all the way. And I did it all the way over here. You know, you got the table overlapping this character's legs, but then the character wraps in behind there, you know, and he forms an overlap over the table. His head forms an overlap. If you go around my room, you will not find any tangent lines, period. All right? Keep going around the room. You can't find them, you know. I drew in, like this is a good example right here. Got him. He forms an overlap here in space. There's him, all designated. Behind him, not perfectly lined up with his body, is that portrait, right? It's kind of broken. Same with the trim of the room. Same with where the floor meets. Same with where the door is. The door kind of lines up with this side of his body right here. But it's okay because this arm is overlapping and this hand is going to overlap the door, which is going to tell me where that door is in relationship to him. Okay? Anyways, I think I've given enough examples. I don't want to overdo these things. I always make these videos so long. You know, you think you could just wrap up a concept in 5 minutes. It's not doable. Anyway, so that's tangent lines. And what you don't want to do is draw them ever. Ever. So, I think I posted a video there for Black Sad. It was a Let's Look At video. You can go, there's a segment at the end of that video where I focus on one panel. Very similar to this panel. It's very convoluted, or sorry, not convoluted, but it's very congested with a lot of detail, right? You got tons of things to look at in the room, right? And that stuff can be so intimidating when you're going to draw them, right? But if you keep the idea of scale and perspective and avoiding tangents in the back of your mind as you're constructing this stuff, you'll find that everything will start to fit into place, okay? And there's many steps that come afterwards, you know, getting to your final product. And we're going to learn all that stuff as we go. But these are super important things to keep in your mind as you're learning to draw, okay? Because once they're nailed in there, you're not going to draw them in anymore. I was finding today to draw the bad examples of when tangent lines are present that I couldn't even draw them because I avoid them so much in my practice. So take it from me. Once you know it, it's kind of hard to unknow it, right? Anyway, thank you for spending some more time with me. I'll be back with some more stuff for you soon. Lesson-wise, look out. Within either today or the day after, I'm going to post another Let's Look At, and then hopefully get another time lapse up there for you to enjoy. Come check me out on Twitch. I'm there 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'm posting a little webcomic right now on my Instagram for the month of October. So you can check me out so you can check me out at all of those social media outlets at Christian Wolf Art. Hit the subscribe button below my chin here. Become a wolf cub. Become one with the pack. And keep drawing. Keep keep at the craft, y'all. Thanks for spending time with me. I hope you learned something. Have a great day.